most couples who have been together for less than a decade probably haven't spent a day together without their phone. And there's some mad research that just by having your phone switched off on the table, doesn't even need to be on, then it reduces the empathy between two people, and it also reduces your IQ. It's such an all-consuming part of our lives that it has an effect.
Right then, fellas, another sponsor for the pod is probably something you're very familiar with. If you're in the e-commerce space, it's certainly something I am. It's Wayflyer. Cash flow is the biggest killer of any fast-growing e-com brand, as I, probably more than most, know very fucking well. Go and watch episode 1 if you haven't already. Wayflyer is an e-commerce funding partner. Essentially, they can front you the cash for a month or so worth of sales. You need a minimum of 6 months sales, a minimum of 20 grand a month, I believe, right now. If you've got a brand that you're super, super passionate about, you want to scale it quick, but cash is a problem, to invest in inventory, mainly, marketing, overheads, team costs, whatever it is, you can get funded in as little as 2 to 3 days. It's literally that quick. No bullshit bank loans, no personal guarantees. I've worked with them personally in the past, took a 6-figure sum off them. Plenty of guys I know in my network and people that have been on the pod and run massively successful brands have also used them as a funding partner, because everyone knows at scale, cash flow is the biggest killer, even if you are profitable. If you think this could be a fit, potentially you could be a fit for them, then go click the link below, speak to the guys at Wayflyer. It's a referral link, so we get a little fee, you save a little bit as well. Support the pod, support your business. Cash is king, especially in this market. Let's fucking go. Right, we're back with episode 71, I think, of the Midnight Pod. We've got Hector Hughes and Oliver Hudson from Saw, my co-host, and we're in the new flat, which is like the old flat, just on the other side of the building, which is a much nicer view. Hector, you've got a cabin business.
That's right.
Essentially.
Is that how you describe it? Someone asks.
Well, it's tricky. I think it's probably the easy one, but I think we're a digital detox business, you know? So we're about getting you off your phone and into the countryside, and we do that via our cabins. So we've got 20 cabins across the UK, and basically when guests arrive, they literally padlock their phones in a box. We give them a map and a Nokia and leave them to it for 3 nights. And that's it.
It's a cool idea.
Perfect timing.
It's
because I always say I'm spending way too much fucking time on the screen.
That's it, man. We all are.
It's called Unplugged, right?
Unplugged, yeah.
Unplugged.rest.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's a good domain.
Yeah.
I'd never felt that whole burnout vibe until moving into a big city. Like, I'm from rural York, and it's like I feel like green space just changes the vibe. Like you say, like getting in nature is like a very big. It's like a energy shift, isn't it? Like to a degree. But if you've spent all of your time inside or very like you don't even look. Like when you're in the middle of London, you can't see more than 100 metres ahead of you most of the time either. I just feel like that's a big, just being able to see more space, a bit more colour, life.
I decided a few months ago that I wanted to live more on the countryside, and then I moved into a fucking tower block.
This is it,
yeah, again. So I told myself I'll do one more year, and then I'm going to somehow move to the countryside, although that's probably really not practical. Maybe I should just do an unplugged detox every month. That's
it, man. Yeah, just do that. But yeah, I think we don't realise as well. I know you're in Camden now, Ollie. I was living just up Camden Road, and it was like where all of the ambulances went past all day. Yeah. And you just kind of normalise it. But then it's when you get away from that you're like, fuck, that was nuts, you know? You just got a low-key stress all day, every day.
Yeah, it's chaos. The chaos around there.
Yeah, man.
One of the most chaotic places I've ever been in my life.
I've actually never really been around there. I've lived in London 4 years, 4.5 years.
To be honest, I don't really spend much time around there other than in my house and kind of just
in your safe 4 walls.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess I want to start with where you are now. Like, how many cabins have you got? I know they're based around. Is it just London and Manchester, combining the two together? Or how many have you got, and where are they based mostly?
Yeah, for sure. So we started an hour or two from London. So we've got 20 cabins now. Probably 15 of them are around London in the home counties, and then just starting to spread out across the UK now. So launched a few near Manchester, North Wales. Got Bristol coming later this year, hopefully Edinburgh, and also some international as well. So starting to spread out, and I think capitalise on we built good brand equity, but maybe it's been the challenge with this business is just so constrained by supply, because a cabin is basically a hotel room, you know. So we've been going 3 years, we've got 20 cabins, basically a small hotel, you know. So, but what we have done is built a lot of brand equity. So it's now about how do we capitalise on that. And very much like the big hotel chains, so Marriott, Hilton, what they did in the early days, they owned their own product and built a really strong brand. And over time, they've moved towards more of an asset-light model. Yeah. And now as a company, they just focus on customer acquisition and loyalty. And that's kind of where we see this going as well. But in the early days all about owning that supply, and then as we grow, you can do some interesting shit on the business model.
That makes a lot of sense. In terms of,
how the fuck do you get into wanted to do this? Because I feel like it's way more unique than every like econ bro starts a fucking D2C brand, realizes CAC's too high, and then goes to become a forex fraud or a crypto trader, which 90% of people I know that used to be in the space have done. What's your background a little bit before that? I know we spoke ages ago about it, but I probably forgot all of it. So yeah, like pre-unplugged. And what led you into that? Was there like some traumatic experience where you're just working too much and you thought you needed detox, or was it a bit more commercial than that?
That's basically it, yeah. So I was an early employee at a tech startup. So I was the second employee on the commercial side, and my now co-founder was the first employee. And it was iPad till systems. So if you go into a restaurant or a cafe and use an iPad, vibe. We didn't own the payments, which turned out to be the issue. But yeah, it didn't
makes sense.
Didn't end up going well. But actually, they got acquired by Revolut, so happy ending. But the bit I was in kind of ended in failure. So we did the whole high growth, international expansion. I did a bunch of roles there. So did sales for a year, was pretty rubbish at that. Then I ran product for a year, wasn't much better at that, and then ran growth for a year. And that final year we were like launching internationally, so was flying around the world, setting up offices in US and Australia, and just got a bit, I think, dissatisfied with it, a bit kind of burnt out, and was spending all day on my phone. Was also like living the busy London life, like going out a lot, and I think just really didn't feel like right in myself, just didn't feel like it felt like I was living life on other people's terms. I think a bit of a cliche, but that's where I was. And then a friend of mine recommended a silent retreat in the Himalayas, and at a Buddhist temple. And I initially kind of laughed this off. I thought, I can't do that. Like, what would the guys at work think? And then after a couple of months, I was like, I may as well. What have I got to lose? So flew out there. It was literally a Buddhist temple on top of a mountain. And the best thing about it is when you get there, they take your phone off you. You just spend 10 days cut off from the outside world. So very cliche, but I came back from that, quit my job a week later, and started
really
this.
Found yourself.
Yeah. But I didn't actually intend to do that, but came back and had to come back for like a quarterly planning meeting. And 2 days into that, we were losing 300k a month, trying to raise a 10 million Series A. 2 days after I got back, the Series A fell through, and so my boss went out, took a phone call, came back in, and he said, right, that's it, we've got to shut down half the company, so close the US office, close the Australian office. I was running growth at the time, paused the growth spend, so it got less interesting overnight. So then had a week twiddling my thumbs, heard about cabins, was thinking about digital detox. I spent 3 hours on a Friday night Googling cabins and thought, let's go.
Did you watch the horror film Cabin in the Woods?
We don't talk about
Is that where this came from?
It's not good for the brands. I have seen that one, but yeah, we try and veer away from that one.
It's a cool story, very like experience-driven story, I guess. Like mine's like, which is cool. Like unlike a lot of brands, which I feel like are just
a lot of businesses just start because people want to be an entrepreneur, right?
It's very interesting.
Like all agency owners, they just want to print.
I want to hear more about the silent retreat. I know that's probably not the main thing we want to discuss, but just how did that look? Like, what was the experience? Is it just like you don't speak? I'm assuming you don't speak for the whole journey time you've there. I've read a little bit about them, but
yeah, for sure. So this one was called Intro to Buddhism. So it's like half Buddhist philosophy, which I didn't know anything about, going into that, and half meditation. So I was getting like more and more into meditation around that time anyway. Did something called transcendental meditation.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Which is good. That was really good. And then this, basically you're spending 4 or 5 hours a day meditating and 4 or 5 hours a day learning Buddhist philosophy. And it's mostly silent. There's like 1 hour a day discussion. But the silence, everyone's like, fuck, I don't know if I could be silent for 10 days. But that's actually easy. And that's really nice.
Probably
that
quite
really
refreshing.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So yeah, you come out of that I came out of that just buzzing. And I think it depends where you are in life. Like, it was exactly the right thing for me then.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely found the more of that kind of shit I do, the more I crave doing those kind of things, which is where the business came from as well. Like, a lot of it was like I wanted to go and stay in a cabin and lock my phone away, you know.
Makes sense. So what's the journey been like from then? Obviously you've got 20 cabins now, 3 years. How, like, talk me through a bit of that. Like, what's it look like? How's that?
Yeah, so it's been a steep learning curve. I think we got fortunate, to be honest, with timing, because we got started on it. So I quit my job and then went for a drink with Ben, old colleague, and he was like, yeah, I'd love to come and do this with you. So teamed up then, and then ordered the first cabin in February 2020, which is the month before COVID hit. But that actually turned out to be great because we got it in June, made by a Swedish company because we didn't know anything about cabins. We thought we'd trust the Scandinavians. And obviously everyone had been in lockdown at fucking flats in London on their screens, basically.
Yeah.
So actually, to be honest, the launch we kind of fucked up, and we've got about 2 bookings the first month, but then something just clicked, like some big influencer came to stay, and then the Evening Standard got in touch, and then it just snowballed from there. And the summer after that was like the summer staycations. But we took a long time, probably too long at the start, just fucking around with stuff. So we spent 9 months, just me and Ben, like messing around with one cabin. And then I went to see some investors. We were talking to a few investors, and one of them was like, "What you guys do? Why have you still only got one cabin?" So then raised a pre-seed, hired a head of ops, and just started growing from there really. And that was a couple of years ago. And then since then, grown to a team of 11, got 20 cabins, but should be able to double that in the next probably 6 or 7 months. So feels like we've done made a lot of progress this year. Like 2 years ago was the summer staycation, so literally didn't have to do anything, and the cabins were just full all the time. Yeah. And then last year was a bit of a correction where like I think we hadn't built that muscle. What you guys always talk about, like just getting really good at customer acquisition, because it had been so easy, and we just got all this inbound PR for the year before that. So last year was a bit of a harder year on that side of things, but then made a couple of great hires, got lucky there, and this year's been really kind of felt like we've reached the next level on just filling the cabin, so they're 100% occupancy at the moment, and really kind of got a lot of momentum to grow off the back of.
Just on a practical level, if you want to get a cabin, where'd you go? Is this pre-made or is this bespoke? And also, how do you know where you can put the cabin? Yeah, like do you have to rent land? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's
cabin
simple
logistics.
Simple in practice, but simple in theory, tricky in practice. So there's a lot of like construction companies out there, cabin companies, all the kind of really off the shelf stuff are probably higher price point than makes sense for us as a business. So putting in a bit of the work on going to someone and getting something made bespoke, means that we can get it at a better price. But it literally is as simple as that. It's like so we work with a couple of different modular construction companies, getting a cabin designed up with them, obviously iterating on it all the time. And then it takes a couple of months to build, obviously building a few cabins at a time now. And then we literally get it on the back of a trailer and work with landowners on a revenue share. That's nice and simple. A lot of land out there, a lot of need to diversify the income. And then literally just stick it in, mostly off grid, so it's got a water connection, but then it's like solar powered, compostable toilet, all that kind of shit. So it's simple in theory.
Where was the first one?
First one was just west of Saffron Walden, which was actually a beautiful part of countryside there. We say it's like kind of in and around Hertfordshire. It's actually Essex, but I think Essex is a bit of a branding problem. I have just been living in Essex, but
it definitely is.
Yeah.
It's interesting. What's the sort of lead time in a cabin? Like, how long does it take you to turn one round now? Is that improving as well?
You're drop shipping these cabins, is what you're trying to say.
The cabins, yeah, that's improving all the time. It's like with scale, because you basically working with different. Recently moved to a new manufacturer, and they're kind of building it around everything else they're doing. But then as you start to increase the order number, they can open up a special line for us. So it can get to a point where we're banging them out, got them coming every week, but not quite there yet. It's
great, yeah. It's a great idea and great model. Love it. What's the sort of target in terms of numbers in the next? Have you got a goal in terms of forecasted out numbers of cabins? Obviously, I guess it's every single cabin you release obviously raises your revenue potential in quite a predictable way, and then it's just having the demand to fill it and keeping that chugging along at a predictable level, similar to an Airbnb in it really. Obviously you own it all. What's that journey look like? Do you have plans there, journey? Have you got it forecasted out at the moment? Yeah, I mean, I've done so many forecasts in the last few years, and they've all been so far off. It's so shit. So I think just going with the flow. There's a lot of. It's one of those things where we kind of stumbled onto an interesting positioning. It's quite a unique position especially around the digital detox. So we just get a lot of interesting shit coming through now. So it's just going with the flow and. Seizing opportunities, we're still saying focused on what we do. So there's just a lot of cool shit coming through. I'm doing filming with Top Gear this week because they got in touch that they need to want to do something around digital detox. Cool. There's a lot of shit like that, and as well on the supply side. So it's really just capitalizing from that. And also I think
focusing on staying true to that, because the tendency, there's a lot of like cabin companies globally, there's a lot of cabins in the UK.
It's the positioning.
Yeah,
the brand,
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
But the temptation is just to kind of morph into that over time as you start to bring on like more serious investors and all that kind of shit. Then it's just about, you know, there's the temptation to go down the private equity route and just roll out, you know, a simple business model. But actually, I think focusing on this unique positioning just enables you to build something interesting and different over time.
More valuable as well.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like if you build something different, then
incredibly valuable.
Yeah,
and underappreciated in that space. I think that kind of, or like more. It's appreciated by like the legacy companies you mentioned, like a Marriott and elements of that, but not by kind of newer, I believe.
Quick one, fellas. You probably heard a few months ago I dropped an ecom course, a very fucking guru of me, but it's not that, I promise you. 0 to 1, how to start a brand from scratch with no budget, some budget, a bit of budget. Take your idea from a bedroom to reality to potentially 7-8 figures in sales like I've done a few times, based on my 7 years of experience in the trenches and my current experience building my current brand, Space Goods. It's no bullshit, no frills. We've had like 75 people go through so far. Not a single person has asked for a refund. Plenty of people have actually built some seriously impressive shit. Covers every aspect of the business. Not just the front end stuff like most gurus on YouTube and Twitter are talking about, not just product, marketing, all that shit, but the real shit, the logistics, the back end, the supply chain, the customer service, the finances as well. This covers the whole spectrum, every part, 12 hours of video. If you're interested in scaling a brand 0 to 1, actually turning your idea finally into a reality, then click the link below, go check out Learn Real Commerce course and let me know what you think. I'll be glad to have you in there. Let's fucking go. You said it's fully organic. Is that out of choice because you have limited stock effectively? Or is that just because you've never needed, or haven't felt the need to go down the paid route yet? Because I've never known how to scale anything organically. It's always just been fucking rinse Instagram.
It's not fully organic. It's so we do some paid, and actually
is that Google?
We've got a lot. Kind of Meta, so across the board.
Oh right, both.
Instagram's a good one. Yeah. Google's good. It's quite high intent. I think it's because we're effectively in the travel space, and a lot that's an expensive space on the paid side of things, and competitive. But actually, if you go down the organic route, like again, you can leverage the unique position. It's like influencers, great for us because we don't need to pay them; we just give them free stays. And that UGC is huge for us. We're probably getting 3, 4, 5 posts a day across channels.
Yeah,
that all compounds. Yeah.
People love showing where they are, especially if it's interesting.
100%,
like, nice. It's like Soho House. If you go to Soho House, everyone loves to let people know they're there.
Yeah.
I wrote a note in my phone. It's been really embarrassing. I used to write weird shit like fucking date ideas. I'm pretty sure I have a note on my phone from like 2021 saying I would take my ex-girlfriend on an unplugged cabin.
I remember the first thing you said to me when we met.
Yeah. Never happened. Maybe I'll take the new one there.
Yeah.
I think you sit in this really nice, like, from my perspective, they like completely correct me if I'm wrong, but like you sit in this quite clear persona of individual, like this like fairly, like with the brand position you're building, it's like this unplugged element, but then this like the kind of high output person who's likely to get burnt out. I feel like that gives you a really clear person to go after in the marketing, which is why you've done some stuff with a few big influence. Have you done something with Grace Beverly? Did you?
Yeah, she came stay. That was a big one.
I remember seeing her
influencer. You see the bump after she comes to stage.
Yeah, I remember seeing her posts about it, and she's like a perfect. Imagine she's a perfect fit, like really
wholesome, affluent, relevant
business owner, really highly engaged audience. Like fits the demo of that perfectly. So I can see why that works well.
The good thing about that with influencers is no one's suffering from the problem we're trying to solve more than the busiest people who are spending their lives on social media as well. So it just works well.
It's the perfect fit.
Yeah, and I think like you know, I've learned a lot from what you've done with Space Goods on the paid side of things, kind of seeing that from a bit of a distance. But you know, it's just about doing one thing really well in the early days. Like you can really juice one channel, and I think a lot of startups, and we did at my old company, make the mistake of trying to do a bit of everything, but like fundamentally want to catch that like exponential curve, and it's just about getting all your eggs in one basket and watching that basket.
This is a conversation I have with so many brands we do audits for. Is just you should just do less better. Like you should do one fucking channel. Really, you should 100%. Do one channel because you can focus until you're doing it you'll get to a point where you'll naturally start to feel like you need to do more, and then you bring it in and do that properly as well, or you have enough resource to do it properly. I think that's something, because when you do it all, by default you do nothing well if you don't have enough resource.
It's actually so true. That's what my recent episode was about, basically. Just been doing too many things.
Yeah.
And you just boil it down to how can I be like autistically simple.
Yeah. And it's a bit of vanity. I've found whenever we've tried to do too much, or I've tried to do much in my various roles, it's like me getting carried away with myself, thinking, oh, we need to do this thing, and you're feeling cool because you're doing all these things. But end of the day, like, what's cool is making it fucking work and growing something big.
In terms of the unplugged element, then, I feel like we're chopping and changing in this episode because we're fucking 4 months off. People put their phone, like on a practical level, they lock their phone away. Like, how easily can they just get it out? And like, anecdotally, do people actually stay off their phone for 2 days?
Yeah, so it's self-policed. It's kind of a behavioural psychology problem, rather than... So we're basically an experience company. We've obviously got the cabins, but like, what we're selling is, that we're actually enabling you to spend the time offline. And obviously... So what happens is you get there, you've got the lockbox, you lock it away yourself, and then you've got the key in a sealed envelope. So it's enough friction, you're not opening on night one, but you can just open it. And what we found is it's won or lost before people even get there. So the first cabin, we were checking people ourselves, we were cleaning it, and we would lock their phones away and drive back to London with the key. And what we found is that people saw a cabin on Instagram, like this before we had built much of a brand, and we tried to lock their phone away, and they were like, no way, what are you doing? And so it's won or lost before people even get there. Like, now that we've built, I think, a really good, like, almost halo around the brand, like, people have heard about it, they're excited to come and spend time offline. Yeah. So once you've like told your family, you've told your friends that that's what you're coming to do, then you're much more motivated when you get there to actually do it. So yeah, we ask people this, probably 65% lock it away for the whole 3 days. There's about 30% or 25% that check it a couple of times, and then 10% just don't bother at all. So
makes sense.
Yeah.
3 days? Is it 3 days, 2 nights?
Always 3 nights. Yeah, 3 nights.
3 nights. Okay.
Yeah,
for a Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
No,
or any night.
Any night. Yeah. So we're kind of full throughout the week, and what we find is that when you get off your phone, it takes about a day for the mind to settle down. So the first day you're a bit more anxious, and so we want to get through all of that, but then give you.
I've actually never done 3 days off a phone.
Yeah.
Not even a day.
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't for a few years. I've done days off the phone.
Yeah,
just by putting it and leaving it around, but.
Most couples as well, because what I was expecting, it would be just individuals going like reading, journaling, all that kind of shit, and we get that, but it's actually mostly couples. It makes sense because it's the same, it's effectively half the price if you're a couple. And what most couples who have been together for less than a decade probably haven't spent a day together without their phone. And there's some mad research that just by having your phone switched off on the table, doesn't even need to be on, then it reduces the empathy between two people, and it also reduces your IQ. Because IQ is just a measure of like brain performance, basically. And if you think about like everything that your phone stands for, just like having the phone in the corner of your eye is like pulling your attention, and everything that fucking stands for, all the stress and anxiety. There's some great stuff for your phone as well, but it's such an all-consuming part of our lives that it has an effect.
It's that dopamine hit that's always trying to pull you back to that. Your brain's just trying to pull you back to dopamine pleasure source.
I'm so bad at that recently. I just found myself checking Instagram at 11 a.m. where I used to like lock it away till 3 p.m. at least.
Yeah.
It's like fucking like an actual addict.
Yeah. Even small things like grayscale in your phone makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does.
It's just a massive difference. That's just dopamine again. Like taking the colour just makes it less enjoyable.
Yeah.
Just removing that. Do you find, just on the audience, do you find it's mainly people under the age of 30 or broad?
I wouldn't say. I'd say the kind of core is early 20s to 40s, so it's quite to 40. And then when people go on their own, they tend to be a little bit older, just I guess slightly higher net worth. But we're getting people, we're getting teenagers, 18-year-olds come in, and we're getting some older people as well. I would say the experience isn't as well designed for an older generation. Like my parents went and stayed back in the day. The bed's quite high, so if you're above a certain age, it's a little bit tricky to navigate. So we got to work a bit on the accessibility, but. Yeah, it feels like it's that kind of millennial is the core, but starting to see a younger audience come through as well.
I had an interesting conversation because I think that the value prop of that unplugged element, there's a few niches of product right now that you look at and you're like, this is fairly new and really quickly growing, So that alcohol-free,
Yeah.
like drinking, the decline in that. I think there's a few others, like even just like, it feels like even just like run clubs, exercise clubs, like
wellness in general.
It's like this idea. I was having a conversation about the other day about, and I can't remember who it was with, to be honest. So if they're watching, I've stolen your convo. But it was about like this idea that a lot of the Gen Z and the generations below them, the person I was speaking to was saying that they think there'll be like a really heavy counterculture towards social media. So that'll be there, like there's been countercultures through loads of and like for much more like extreme things in some ways, but then like social media is so all consuming that not in others. But like the idea that loads of people just won't use it, loads of younger generations will just like be like, this, I've seen what this has done to X amount of people ahead of me, I'm just not even going to sign up, I'm just not going to even use it. And I think that's an interesting like concept. Maybe it won't happen, maybe it will, but I could definitely see that being a thing.
Yeah, and I think it's like adding value to people's lives, and you know, it's like it's kind of, I kind of always think about, you hear about these old CEOs occasionally who have never got onto email, and you just think like they must have so much fucking room to think, you know, they're getting like shit printed out and given to them in the morning. And we were talking about alcohol before the recording. It's a similar kind of thing, like not drinking, especially when you're running a company, is such an advantage, man. Like it's those days when you're hungover and feeling shit that like it's all pretty overwhelming, but it's just easier if you don't. So I think as long as like, you know, what works, and as you say, like that over time, if you can actually give people something of value, then yeah, there's always going to be a market for that.
Definitely don't drink when you're going through a breakup as well. Maybe I shouldn't say that on the pod, but yeah, I did that a lot 2 years ago, and it was rough. Ended up fucking writing love letters and listening to like old Drake songs and shit.
So like it's a cool business from the outside. What's the worst thing about running it? I always think that's an interesting question to ask people, because every business looks amazing to run externally, but there's always like one thing that jumps to mind when you're like, what's the thing that just makes it a bit annoying?
That's a good question. I think it's like, you know, hospitalities are tough in many ways because you're always going to get unhappy people. It's Karens. Exactly. And it's 24/7 as well. So there is that, like we had we wanted to close for a week over Christmas last year to give our head of ops some time off, and it just before that there was this massive cold snap, and it was the coldest that it had been since we started the business, and all of our pipes froze and burst. It was like, you know, thousands and thousands of pounds worth of damage. Me and my co-founder were like on the phone to plumbers all over Christmas, and like there's that kind of shit where it's just like it's on all the time. But you know, I guess every business has that a little bit. So, but I don't know. It's also a very fun business to run. Like, I really do enjoy it. And like the last business that was in the point of sale system, the thing with that is you're basically someone's business management system in a restaurant, and either it's working and they're not thinking about it, or it's not working and you've literally ruined their whole fucking day because you've got orders disappearing and like everything's going wrong. So this is kind of the reverse, where even if it goes wrong, which obviously it sometimes does, then people are still out in nature, and you know they're usually pretty chilled. You obviously get difficult customers as well, and then when it goes great, it's like life changing, and you always see a lot of that as well. So it's but you know it's tough, man. Business is tough. Like,
how expensive is it? Is it? I've definitely seen it, but just to go through again, like is there multiple options, or is it pretty fixed across the cabins? And was it like 500 quid or something like that?
Yeah, we're moving to more dynamic pricing, so it's like $390 in midweek, and then it can be, you know, kind of 500 something at the weekend. So yeah, I think as we scale, we'll move to more dynamic, so it can go both ways, right? So we can kind of make the most of the really busy periods, but then also make it more accessible in the midweek.
Did you find a lot of people come back? Yeah,
for sure. We get some like absolute power users who are coming out every couple of months or few months, and then a lot of people. I think where we're really working on now, because what completely transforms this business is that we can make it something people come and do every 6 months to a year. And I think it's like, how do we get really good at getting that kind of big majority to make this like an annual thing, etc.
Yeah, it's like I think it's that ritual habit, like habitualizing that dopamine detox, that reset. Like that reset element is like every quarter. Like it probably ties quite nicely into quarterly, but then you'll have 1 or 2 weeks a year where you're just like everything's full. But I can definitely see it being like once you've done it once, like you feel the impacts. It's like it's very tangible, like very noticeable change in energy, I imagine.
Yeah, what we found is like some of the criticism we got at the start was that you can't change your habit in 3 days, right? Which is fair. Like it takes 21 days to change a habit or whatever it is. But like that's not the point. It's not about changing people's habits. It's about changing your perception. You know, because when you spend three nights off your phone, you realise like the world doesn't end, and you kind of access the state of calm that we just don't get in our daily lives because we're spending all day online overstimulated. So what we found is by like giving people that unlock, you start the momentum off in another direction, you know, because all the momentum is towards spending more time online and, you know, be watching Netflix as you're literally fucking walking through the street. And we want to spin that in a different direction so that people are starting to crave, you know, time offline and seeking that out. So if anything, you know, you come back from a digital detox and you feel like more addicted because you notice it more, right? So at the start you're like, fuck, this is mad, you know, I'm spending all the day scrolling on my phone. Like you do not come out of the cabin and not touch your phone for a week. Exactly. That's how it feels. Yeah. So I think it's important to do that as well, but it's, you know, it's about how can we kind of take people on that journey, and obviously we're talking about like longevity and brand and all that kind of thing, and I think that's a really interesting problem for us as well, which is that how do we be the brand that can do that.
I've been thinking lately, I just need to, I know you used to speak about this, but like, I reckon I'd be better working 7 a.m. till 2 p.m. and then not looking at my computer for the rest of the day. I mean, probably not to that extent, but like, I'm so bad at
just doing busy work.
Yeah,
and that's
so much of it.
It's a chronic thing.
I only get good work done before 2 p.m. Then I have lunch at 2 p.m. I don't eat breakfast. And then any work after that is a fucking waste of time for me, unless it's creative work.
Yeah, I think it's everyone, to be honest, yeah.
I go through waves personally where like I can do like 20 days where I can do like 9 till 9, and then I'll have like the same like 2 week period where I can literally do like an hour and I just feel like I'm doing fucking nothing, which is probably burnout to a degree, but
definitely is.
There's a lot of I think that sounds, I think the world would be a better place if that was a possibility for everybody. I think if you could do that shorter work period, higher output, I think if that was normalised, it would make people more productive because they wouldn't feel like they just need to sit there for that period of time, regardless of whether they're being productive and actually doing anything. Like they could come in, do the work, leave. But there are loads of like, I listened to a guy called Andrew Wilkinson loads who just took that tiny public, who kind of acquired like 30 businesses. He works 4 hours a day. That's it, just 4 hours a day. Runs a $1.2 billion company.
But the other thing is, like, you know, what we're doing at work's changing, especially like we're all running companies here, and fundamentally it's about like insights and good decisions. Like you say, you just beam through some big like business changes, and that is an insight, right? It's like you kind of had these light bulb moments of, fuck, I need to change these things, and it's like optimizing for that. Whereas like the 8-hour workday is designed from factories where if you're making widgets, you know, obviously you can make twice as many widgets in 8 hours than you can in 4 hours. But actually, it's about the quality of decisions and insights, and obviously, you do just need to help with some stuff and kind of support the team and all that kind of stuff. But really, as you know, if you're in the CEO role, like it's about making those leaps as a business, you know, and that can be unlocked by one insight, one conversation, and actually getting out of the fucking room really helps with that. Like getting away from the laptop, going for a walk, getting off your phone is where
experience.
100%.
I think that gets more and more true the bigger your business gets as well. That's what Bezos always says, isn't it? Like if you make one good decision a quarter, because he's making decisions with such extreme leverage.
100%, yeah.
Do I enter this market? Do I bake this product? Like
there's so much more complexity to see through there as well, right?
Yeah.
Like you look at Amazon, there's so much more to work with than, you know, if you're just start like us at the beginning, one cabin, we've got a full one cabin, like that's one thing. But now, you know, we've got all these interesting opportunities. You know, how do we synthesize and tie it all together? And so, I think it's super important more and more. And the temptation is to get busier and busier, right? And just throw yourself into more stuff.
100%.
Yeah, I'll literally find myself fucking sitting at my desk at 10 p.m. being like, I'm working on something. What the fuck am I doing?
Yeah. I think a lot of people do that.
It's just retarded.
Well. Like sometimes
it's just like toxic hustle culture, which I can't shed.
Yeah.
I'll just be clicking around from screen to screen.
I find a lot
I
of
look at that, there's about 25 internet tabs open. I didn't even shut them before recording this because I was like, I don't want to forget what I was doing.
a lot of that is like when I feel like I'm like behind on something, or I like haven't figured something out. There's like a bit of insecurity that like makes me just get busy with other stuff because I know that I haven't like done the thing that actually needs doing.
If you're moving things down your to-do list, it's just like...
Yeah, exactly. So you're just like replying to emails, all that kind of shit. And it's like, actually, the one thing I need to do right now is just like solve this thing, you know?
Yeah, I can't remember what there's a concept where like, just like...
One
when
big
you
thing,
when you that, but there's also like when you think of something you need to do, you just actually start doing it straight away, and you never have that symptom of because it is like you write it down on a to-do list and then it sits there and then it's like that's probably the most important thing I need to do right now, but I really don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's just actually starting it that has the biggest impact on that output.
I think the other thing is like most of what we do, if you look back at like the end of the year, then I reckon 95% of what you did as a founder that year, or as anyone in the company, was a waste of time. 100%, you could have not done it. I look back at running growth the last year at that tech startup. Over 95% of what I did was a complete waste of time. Didn't affect the company in the slightest. If anything, it was a negative. And I think the problem with most work is it creates more work. You know, when you're sending emails, that you're getting replies, and that's just going to create more work down the line. And you know, if that's on the 95% that's not important, then you're just drowning in the mundane. It's
asymmetric returns, isn't it? I think that's and that's the same in e-commerce. It's like the businesses that pull the lead. Not every lever in your business is equal, and the businesses that pull the right levers at the right time with the most focus usually move the fastest and dominate the market. And then momentum, like keeping the momentum when you've got it, is the other thing. I think from an e-commerce perspective that I notice the most.
I think part of it's like gaining the confidence over time to not worry that you need to do anything, right? Because you're understanding what works, and you can kind of leave it at that, you know. So I think there is something you talk about, like Andrew Wilkinson, like he's working 4 hours because you know he's confident in what he's doing. He knows what he's up to. Yeah.
You mentioned you went from 2 to 11 people. What would you say was the biggest, most impactful hire there? I guess you don't want to score your hires, but like, you know what I mean. Like in terms of like, not the people, but like the role itself. Like
for sure. Well, I mean, fundamentally, you know, we are a marketing company, so I think building you know, again, we obviously got to figure out the supply stuff, all that kind of thing. But a bit like an airline, you know, hotels, which we kind of are. It's just about like filling seats, filling beds. Yeah, you basically got this perishable good, which is the bed or the seat. And it's all about just filling that before it goes out. And so fundamentally, that is the thing I think that we really had to get great at. And so made a couple of great hires there, and I'm really happy with. I mean, we've got some great people on board now. So the team generally has really, you know, built out well, and I think that makes it a lot of the joy as well. Because I mean, I as a founder am not good at the doing. Like, I'm pretty lazy with the way I work, and I don't know what it is. I'm pretty dyslexic, and I just was never good at any of the roles I did. But I just give it a task, and I could like tell you how it should be done, but I just didn't do a good job of doing it. But on the other hand, I do have an easy time delegating. Like I kind of basically just trust anyone to start with, and so different, and then my co-founder's different, where you know he's probably a bit more skeptical but can like really sit down and smash something out himself. So I think it's also like leaning into what works for you as a founder as well, right? Because I think people, again, you see founders talking about what they did to be successful, and you're like, oh shit, I need to do that, or I'm not doing that, or whatever it is. But like, I think every founder is so different, and it's about like leaning into what's working for you, you know, and like and not worrying about that, you know. I've
made 100%. I think that comparison point in terms of the way someone's grown, the way someone does today, the way they execute. I've made a really conscious decision to remove a lot of that from my consumption over the last like 8 months. Like, I just don't do any of that anymore. I just do what works for me. I think that's a really like but I know a lot of people would do better if they did that. I'd just follow, like, instead of following like 50 people, just follow like the 2 that really resonate with you. 100%. So Wilkinson one.
I might start following the 4 hour per day guy. I think I need a break. I think I need to work less.
It's like finding people, but more so the way they think and the mindset and their approach. Like, find those similarities and then just go deeper into them.
Yeah, and the hard thing is like, you know, like all the wisdom's out there, but it's like just doing one thing well. You know, like we all get so excited about I do, you know, all these new ideas. It's like, fuck, if I do this, it's gonna transform my business, and then a week later I'm off down a different rabbit hole. You know.
Yeah.
So it's like just really figuring out what the 2 or 3 things are for you over time, and then it's just about playing the game.
Is your team in an office or remote, or is it both?
We've got 6 in London and 5 like in other countries, so obviously they're fully remote. But the team in London, we meet Monday, Fridays, which is a bit different to everyone else. And then in the week, you know, I go in most days anyway, which is in a WeWork, and everyone else up to them. Some people work well at home. I personally work well. I'm not sure I ever work well, but I work better like swanning around, kind of meeting people and thinking and chatting. But yeah, I think that FaceTime's, for me personally, that FaceTime's super important. I think there's a level of like, there's a depth of understanding when you're having a conversation with someone that you just can't get over Zoom, in my opinion. So I do find the remote stuff quite hard right now. Like we have a lot of the back office stuff there, so customer support, finance, etc. And I find it really easy. Well, no, I don't find it really easy. It's you know, I think we've done a decent job of like building the culture here because you get that FaceTime, but it's I haven't figured it out for the remote team. And I'm always thinking like, oh fuck, you know, we did like a terrarium workshop on Friday with the London team, and then we're like posting pictures on social media, and I'm like, damn, with the remote team seeing that and thinking, feeling left out. And so there is just this, because I also feel like my role as a CEO, you're kind of looking at the organization as like a living organism. And you're always trying to sense like where the issues are, like where the resentment is, how everyone's feeling, and like is everyone humming and set up for success. And I find that much easier face to face with people in London than remote. So I haven't quite figured that out yet, but
a lot of it's just doing the same thing, but doing it over the internet. Like, it really is. Like, just get them on a Zoom and do the same thing, but just have them sat on the TV. Celebrate wins in the same way. Build like that. It definitely is harder. Obviously, 100%. Because I think there's like just like energy exchange in person and like just body language, etc. But
my problem is, it might be because I'm like severely retarded, but I just find, because we were doing a lot of co-work stuff the past few months, just trying to do more in person, but I just get no fucking work done. Like, literally none. I just speak to people.
I think that's
It's just like, I need to be sat at my big desk by myself with copious amounts of rainbow dust.
That's personal preference again.
Although I do like the swanning around, as you put it, like meeting people. That's the most interesting part.
Yeah, but that's it. I think it depends again, like what value or like what your role is for the business at the time. Like it's, you know, as you were saying on the video earlier this week, it's like just getting back to basics and just smashing out what you know and scaling that up. And like you don't need to go and talk to a whole bunch of people for that because you know it, you know. Whereas like a lot of, I feel like, you know, we didn't have any experience with the space. I didn't have any experience with the space, and a lot of it has been just trying to fucking figure it all out. Like, how does asset financing work? You know, how does all of this kind of property stuff, all of the, you know, cabin off grid, like hospitality, and so I found it useful just chatting to a whole range of people and just all these kind of surprising things coming out of it. But again, like either works, and I think it's just, you know, doing sticking to what gives you energy as well, because a lot of it's like energy management, you know.
Yeah.
Like if you're like forcing yourself to do something that just doesn't give you energy, then
it's that
it's just
zone
not,
of genius concept, isn't it? Like,
what's that?
You should. So it's a concept where like usually the things you're good at and the things you're interested in give you energy, don't take energy. And your zone of genius is where like your interests. Yeah, like it's like something you're interested in is something that you're good at, and where those two things align is like considered what your zone of genius is, where you'll spend endless amounts of time doing that because you enjoy it and you're good at it, and therefore it usually gives you energy. And you always you manage the concept is like print off your calendar from the last 2 weeks, go through it, highlight everything that you felt sapped energy from you, and then focus on doing more. Positioning yourself in a way where you can spend more time doing the things that aren't highlighted on that sheet, because you'll find you'll find it much more fulfilling, and you'll probably progress much faster by then you're meant to like delegate or eliminate and just kind of work through that process, and you'll position yourself where you should be in your business.
I need to do that because I felt very energy zapped for the past few months. I used to enjoy running ecom brands. Now it's just miserable.
What do you reckon it is when you happiest?
Always right at the start.
Yeah.
Going from idea to
Creativity.
business.
You're happy when you're creating things, but there's a lot of business which is doing the same thing over and over and over again and trying to improve it.
Yeah, so there's also an element of I'm now self-aware enough to know that this is happening again. Doesn't mean do something else. It means pivot within the same thing.
Yeah. So,
and figure it out. Because in the past I'd have been like, oh fuck this, I'm starting a new brand.
I think, yeah, doing that, and then the hard part for that is that doing that process is easy. Finding the right people to delegate the work that you don't want to do to is probably the harder part of it, and being able to eliminate it through like systems, processes and stuff. But I think it's a cool concept.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, and I think you can just always push it much more than you think, right? Like that there is this almost, talking about hustle culture, like you almost feel like I should be, doing more, being busy, like working the long hours, and there's a time and place for everything. But I think it's like challenging the assumptions a lot more, because no one fucking knows what they're doing, and like any of us know just as much as about how we work best, more than anyone. So I think it's, there is an expectation that it's hard not to feel that you should do, be everything and anything, and it's actually like, if that's not you, then that's fine.
Yeah, I agree.
What the fuck is this? Space Goods, spacegoods.com, Rainbow Dust version 1, my newest entrepreneurial ecom brand venture. I spent 6 months in the trenches building this shit from scratch. We launched 6 weeks ago. What's it all about? The next generation wellness brand with a long-term vision to essentially consumerize the pending psychedelic consumer goods market, which might sound absolutely ridiculous. We're not quite there yet. The market's massively illegal. But what is this? Rainbow Dust version 1 is an all-in-one mushroom and adaptogenic blend designed to unlock your supernatural self. Essentially, experience a sharper focus, sustained energy, zen-like calm throughout the day. It's an all-in-one powder, tastes like fucking hot chocolate, tastes delicious, works great, looks great, feels amazing. Essentially, the broader concept here was to legally imitate a psychedelic microdose, and like I said, experience those symptoms. You can mix it with anything, brownies, bake brownies with it, mix it with your coffee, have it without coffee, replace your coffee, put it into a protein shake. It's super fucking versatile, it tastes great, it replaced the stack of supplements I was previously taking, but you need to try this shit. It would definitely change the way you work, get you into that deep workflow. I obviously think that myself. Plenty of 1,000+ first customers think the exact same shit. It's not just a pretty packaging, it actually works really fucking well. Keto, vegan, all that good shit. Trust me, you need to try it for yourself. Let's scale this shit to the moon. Spacegoods.com. Get on your Rainbow Dust subscription and see how you fucking feel. Let's do it for the boys. Spacegoods.com.
I think that the thing I've noticed about myself in the last few weeks, maybe the last 3 weeks,
is that you are recession proof.
I'm fucking horrendous at saying no to things. I'm just I'm such like in a work context, people are like, do you want to take this opportunity on? And I'm just like, yeah. I'm like, well, but then if I actually sit down and like the impacts of that when you pull it out over like a long period of time, it's like I just fucking should have said no to
even
that.
This podcast, you said yes to co-hosting this. You ain't got time for it.
No, but it's just like I'll just say yes to doing tasks and shit. I'm like, why? It's going to take me like 4 hours. Like, what am I doing?
I don't know how you split your time, to be honest.
Yeah.
You seem to have 15 businesses.
We've got like 80 people working for us, so it's like that's how, and like it's like the right people, So our best hire will be a COO. He just runs.
Is that across Hamby, Saw, and Tev?
No, Tev's separate. That's for you. Saw.
Have you got the person for that?
Yeah, I got a COO called Matt, and he's like the biggest. He was the most important. Well, not the only important, but like the way he's built the operations. Like agency's just repeatable process to different people, isn't it? And optimizing that.
Does he have equity?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I was going to say you definitely don't pay him enough.
we do. But yeah, just like saying no. I split my time in. It really does vary. I spend too much time on phone calls. That's my bottleneck in life.
I quite enjoy calls. Maybe it's, I don't know, but you are right. I spend so much time on calls that aren't necessary.
Can spend 9 hours a day on calls sometimes. Like literally 9 till 6, back to back. No gaps. That's absolutely hell. I just come up with them like 6 o'clock. I'm like, that day just deleted itself. I'm like, doesn't feel. I feel because when you're on the phone, time just flies by because you're speaking to people.
It does.
They internal, they're external.
Always a mixture. I wouldn't. Yeah, more external.
How do you split?
Stuff.
Sorry, I'm treating him like the guest now.
Yeah.
How do you split the 3? Oh, you have like 4 because you've got the Jack group, Tev stuff.
Yeah.
And then you've got the agencies, basically. But do you split them a certain time per day, or like
split them
is
into,
it just a
try
big
and
blend?
split them into days. I split calls now into like, I'll take calls on a Monday and Tuesday just to get them done. And I'm trying to cut those out slowly. And then then I don't really split my days. I usually just book it like big tasks into my calendar and book it out like what needs doing. But the agencies, I'm pretty like top level, like what you were saying, like basically just making decisions and guiding strategy. And then on the odd case, I really enjoy the marketing. So like for you or for like some other clients who work with, I'll actually just help on the account sometimes, which is an example of something I probably shouldn't be doing. But like sometimes it just needs to be done. So it varies. I'm not very good at booking. I don't work in a structured way. Like some people would be like, I'm going to do this on this day, this on this day. But it just doesn't really work like that in practice.
How long do you think you'll be doing all of this for? Or will you be doing more?
Don't know.
Got anything else in the pipeline?
No, definitely not. That's the saying no. It's my big goal for next year, just saying no. Yeah, don't structure it. But what's most of your time spent on in terms of like, if you were to split it into people, ops, marketing, biz dev, I don't know. Yeah,
it's a lot of like I would say kind of growth on the supply side. So a lot of like, structuring deals, talking to kind of potential, both on growing our own supply and like potential like joint ventures, all that kind of stuff. So a lot of it's like looking ahead. I do have one-on-ones with most of the London team, which is pretty quick, just like an hour each week, and very light on meetings, to be honest. I've got better. I've always been bad at saying no as well, but I got better at just like not replying to emails. Sounds bad, but it just works
that's a great idea.
I'm criminal for that as well.
Which is like cancelling calls, like because you just say yes in the moment sometimes, and then just sitting there at the beginning of the week, and you're like, why am I doing these calls?
Yeah, say yes to some like American esports agency from some niche fucking Massachusetts town that want to do a collaboration. I'll say yeah, and then you realise, what am I doing on this call?
Yeah, 100%. And I've also like just really trying to practice like sending stuff off, delegating stuff.
Yeah,
because like people like picking it up, they'll probably do a better job than me as well. And there's just this like, again, when someone gets in touch, I almost like feel like sometimes your email feels like your to-do list. When like people get in touch, you just feel there's like obligation to get on a call, and it's just so getting better at that is has definitely helped a lot. But just spend a lot of time thinking as well, like a lot of time reading, a lot of time walking, and just trying to practice what I preach, and like trying to figure out like what the next step is, like what the next kind of step change is. But it's also capital intense business, a lot of fundraising.
Yeah, so I was going to ask about that. How much fundraising have you done? You can share specifics, or you don't have to. But have you done many rounds? Has it all been angels? Have you done VC? Anything? Have you? What's the deal?
It's mostly angels. We've done a couple of equity rounds, very small friends and family round at the start. Did a 300k pre-seed, and then did a 900k seed round last year. Mostly angels. We're not EIS, so it did hit the ticket size. I mean, we got a lot of small tickets. We got like probably 70 investors, 70 angels, and then a couple of funds as well. So we've got a small VC called Magic Fund, and the Wilkinson family office are in the papers. Obviously, everything's happened to Wilco, so we got a shout out.
Oh, is that then?
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
We got a shout out in the Guardian article for that. Wilco, the discount chain's just gone bust.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I should read the news.
Yeah, so nice.
That's interesting.
So yeah, we've done that, and then we've done probably about 400k worth of debt. So starting to move more towards debt for financing the cabins.
I guess if you've got the assets, it's easy
exactly.
to do that.
Yeah.
It's a very attractive business to invest in. I would invest in it personally.
Yeah,
I nearly did. He emailed me.
Tried, wouldn't give me any money. But we also had to do a bit kind of financial engineering. So the asset finance market got a bit tricky earlier this year with everything happening with interest rates. And so what you got a cabin which has a good return, but then it's a soft asset. So if you're an institution, you don't really know what you're going to do with a cabin. So that got tricky, and but then we had a lot of these kind of private investors who, had money that was just sitting in a bank account. So we created a financial product called a cabin back loan, which is a decent interest rate, like 13-14%, and it's like 50k secured against an individual cabin, and that's worked really well. We've done a whole load of those this year. It's just
That's a
people
good idea.
What, so someone
50K.
gives you 50k
Yeah,
and you pay them back
maybe
14% every year?
ChatGPT. Yeah,
Be
exactly.
a cabin-based
Maybe
Big
give
Short in a few years.
Yeah, that's it. The cabin bubble. Yeah, it's one of those where it just like gets us.
But how does that work? Can you create your own loan?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just a legal document. It was just a document.
Ah, true.
So we're thinking you can like securitize it and shit. That's where it gets complicated. But a loan's a loan, and then that's it. As long as they're not like, owning the cabins, they've just got a charge against the cabin. Then it's fine. And that's it. Like it works well for everyone. And it's one of those where you'd rather have friendly terms with higher interest rate than, because I think there's a lot of porn around like raising money, but what terms you raise it on, I think doesn't get enough look, both on the equity and the debt side, right? Like we were doing some asset financing and it was like predatory, amortizing super aggressively, so you're repaying the principal as well as the interest. Just means that we'd be launching cabins and you literally all the profit from that cabin would go into repaying the debt. And so as you're growing, you're literally not adding anything to the bottom line. And so actually what this does is, because it's interest only, you're making pretty good profit on the cabins as well. And I think it's the same with equity. Like, people are signing so much stupid shit, and it's easy to say in hindsight. But I think, just understanding it's really hard as well when you're, haven't been through this process before. Obviously, we haven't done it before, but to kind of extrapolate as to how it's going to play out. Like, whereas the investors have seen these things play out hundreds of times, like the founders haven't, right?
They've got much bigger data.
Yeah, and that like fucking 20-page term sheet you're getting, or 20-page legal document, then who knows what half of these terms are going to turn out as in a few years. So I think it's like figuring that out over time, and like what's important, and that's where, like, as we were saying, getting offline, stepping out the room helps you understand these things a bit better. Yeah. So I think what I've found is over the last 3 years, constantly reshaped how I see the business in my mind, like realize what kind of business I'm running. Still learning. I'll look back in a year and I'll be like, I had no idea back then what business I was running, But then now to a year ago, I have a completely different idea of what it is. So I think it's also like understanding the game you're playing, and like learning over time, just what that is, and that then informs the decisions, right? And the quality of the decisions.
Yeah, definitely. I think that all my best creativity and insights come when I'm not sat in front of a laptop, like, so that clarity of thinking. And on the raising money cap table, the cap table's the only non-irreversible decision in business.
Yeah,
it's like, and I feel like that's
unless you buy them out.
But like, it's probably not going to happen in the reality.
These are my cap table.
Really fun.
But it's just like it's just a very hard. It's near irreversible. Like taking that and that money. It just needs to be very thought through, and you start answering to other people, which I think is a very overrated. Like,
I got a friend who they launched they started on business 5 years ago, raised a few $100K out the bat, and one of the angels there, they agreed to give them like equal voting rights with the founders. It's like 1-for-1, and it completely derailed the business for the first 3 years. They're still going. They just launched 5 years in. I won't say.
They've just launched.
Just launched 5 years in.
They're doing for 5 years.
They spent 3 years battling with this investor.
But about what? Because there's no product.
Well, but they wanted to take it down different paths.
Decision making.
What the product was. Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. So
it's stupid that he did
crazy.
that. Whoever did that. Yeah. that is a small print that's just like ruined. Yeah. Interesting. Have you found it? I'm assuming you find it easier and easier to get that sort of money over time, which makes
100%.
Like scale, security of people. Like as it gets bigger, people's securities in giving you the money is going to be higher.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the kind of business where as the revenue starts to get more predictable, like you've got a ton of funders for it. But it's just that early days where like it's not a VC play because it's asset heavy. It's not an angel play because it's not. So we went down that route. It's very time consuming.
We're not as sexy as something.
Yeah,
some things as well. Yeah.
But actually, like, you do have the assets, and once it becomes this like predictable revenue stream, then there's all sorts of funders for this. So we're starting to get a lot of inbound interest on that side of things, and I think. But also just figure out who the right partners are on that as well is key.
Yeah, the fundraising world's interesting. I've learned a lot about it in the past year because I've never raised money before. A year and a half. then I've been speaking to loads of VCs over like the past year, which I've documented on the pod. I was probably very naive when I spoke to the first one. Probably thought a call meant 3 million quid.
Yeah.
And actually it means tie kicking and patronising you over a call from some 23-year-old that just got out of uni and has never run a business and is somehow looking at your financials and giving you feedback. Not all of them, but yeah, I feel like it's very different in consumer. I can imagine that. I mean, everyone fucking hates D2C right now because it's 2023, not 2020. And it's very different. Have you seen that across all clients? Like, it's just harder. Because I would say that it's black and white in terms of everyone I spoke to as well, and not just me.
Yeah, it's harder. It's definitely it's more competitive. It's like platforms are harder. Data's changing. The way people buy is changing. The barrier to entry is higher. But it's still not that hard if you do it right. If you do it properly, like it's still possible to launch and scale brands online far easier than it is to do through any other channel. It's just like what the model of success and the inputs needed for success has changed, and like the approach to that has changed. But to black and white answer your question, yes, it is harder. Yeah. I think that it'll continue to get harder as well. Just have to have a better product, better content, better brand, better messaging. Whereas you used to just be able to slap a single image on Facebook and just fucking print money, and that's a good
White
thing.
label.
That's a very good thing, I think, that it's got harder because people are now building tangible businesses, proper value adds to the customer, not just value adds to the person in the bedroom who's trying to make money.
And all the grey hat dropshippers have moved into Forex or crypto scams instead. I know plenty of them.
I think it's a bit somewhat of a correction to not just rinsing people for shit experience and building proper brand. And the cream always rises to the top. If you're really good at it, you can still do just as well. It'll always continue.
Yeah.
The market is harder.
Yeah, CAC's too high. That's what keeps me up at night. So have you seen that? I know you said you mainly organic, but you did some paid.
Yeah.
Do you think it's got... I mean, there's people talking about a recession, we're probably already in one. Do you think that affects your product and market? Or
surely helps the staycation model.
Or is it almost
it helps,
the opposite? Because people aren't going elsewhere and they want to just fucking do a staycation.
Yeah, it's one of those where there's been a lot of volatility in our industry because of COVID. We're a travel company, basically. So... that, if anything, has a bigger effect, and actually we're on a positive kind of momentum in that, and also it's fairly recession proof in the way that when people are low on cash,
recession proof,
they're not flying, and they're more stressed out. So why people come and stay, we've seen go from I just want to spend a couple of days in nature to I'm burnt out, stressed at work, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I mean it's hard to say, right? Because then we've also just got a lot better at marketing this year. So, we haven't really seen it, to be honest. I think our CAC's a lot better than it was last year on the paid side of things. But a lot of that is we just got a lot better at doing ads from not being very good last year. So I think it's one of those where, we're at the kind of scale, we're still super early, right? So the data is much more variable on that, right? And I think you can mistake the micro influences for the macro. Whereas for us, it's just what's changing around us and in our company. It has made all the difference. So yeah, I don't know. I do think that it probably is quite friendly though for where we are now.
Yeah, definitely.
I think and market into that halo effect of things. So you're in a really nice position from a societal perspective. Yeah, I think it's cool.
Yeah, but then the funding did definitely get harder this year. So we had to kind of do some figuring out with the cabin back loans. Yes, any business, you're always getting curveballs, right? And anytime it's going really well, there's a correction around the corner. You saw all these companies who just boomed over COVID, the Pelotons, the patch plants, and then had a massive, obviously they're slightly different companies, but massive correction. So careful what you wish for. It's very easy as well to look at, you were talking about it in the video earlier this week, where you see all this success on LinkedIn or anywhere else, and you think, fuck, everyone else got it so easy. And then you actually go and speak to the founders, and everyone's dealing with shit. And
that funding correction's been all over the place. Like D2C again, pretty much every D2C brand who've IPO'd is now just absolutely in the mud. Like orders, everything, absolutely just painful to look at the graph, like really painful.
Yeah.
So again,
but then it's probably also a really good time to be building a startup, because if you can weather the storm,
100%.
I mean, you say it could get worse. I mean, probably will, but it could also get better after that. And then if I think it's better to build when it's shit rather than start when it's really great and have the rug pulled.
I think it's just a really good time to build a good business. And if you build a good business with good product market fit, you will always find it. You will never find it that, like, you'll find it harder, but it's still like you'll never find it that hard. And I think it's like, just if you fit that mold, like you've clearly got great product fit, great, very clear customer persona, great business model. Just so, although it's a bit more challenging, it's still found a way to work, and I think that's the truth of a lot of businesses that fit that kind of mold and have good fundamentals behind them and good operators within them. What's the plan? Obviously, the plan is to just continue to scale the cabins from one perspective. Is there any other, there's probably elements you're not going to want to share, but any like other elements around that? Is there just broader product plans, broader experience plans, any like other verticals, or is it just for the next couple of years? Probably is for a short term, but just let's just scale more cabins.
No, we do have a few things in the pipeline that I can't talk about yet. I'll say that read a book about Che Guevara recently, a biography, because I think every startup, you're trying to make a movement, and you kind of want to turn that into a revolution, and he's obviously the famous revolutionary. And a bit of advice he gives in that about successful revolutions is that to make a successful revolution, you got to focus on audacity. So I think we've played it pretty safe for the first 3 years, and that's very much going to be the focus going forward. So we can talk a bit off camera about what some of those things are, but nothing to watch yet. But I think it's just, we're an experienced company.
Cabins with ayahuasca
Cabins
in them.
On the moon, all sorts of shit. I had a friend, I'm pretty sure I said this on the podcast, but he went to stay and did a LinkedIn post like everything was really nice, but like he didn't say he had a good time. He was just like everything was really thoughtful, etc. So I messaged him. I was like, "What's up? How was your stay?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, the camera was really nice. So did you enjoy it though?" And he was like, "To be honest, mate, we had a really bad acid trip. It completely ruined the whole thing. So wouldn't recommend that if anyone's going to stay."
I was going to say, I can imagine there's a lot of that. It feels like it attracts a certain earthy experimental crowd.
Yeah, we haven't figured out how to track that yet, but I'm sure there's a fair amount.
Have you had any horror stories about states you found cabins in?
As a business,
any orgies?
We're quite fortunate.
It's got to be some.
It's quite like there's obviously some, like you occasionally get sex toys in the bin, that kind of thing. But what we are, it's quite wholesome.
Yeah, it's quite
so we're not too bad. Like, I know
yeah.
people who run Airbnbs and every other stay has an orgy and they trash the place. And there's even spoke to some other guy who's got a few cabins in the UK and he markets on Booking.com, which is just a different audience. And again, just gets his cabins trashed all the time. So I think luckily because it's very direct, so 95% of our bookings are direct.
Affluent as well.
Yeah, it's very like brand focused, right?
Yeah,
it's like very kind of well-being. So I think people are going not to have a mad one. So that obviously is much easier for us operationally. But law of large numbers, there's obviously a little bit of that.
Yeah. I actually really want to go. Like, how far ahead are people booking typically now?
It's one of those where like if you're burnt out, you don't want to go next year. So I would say our sweet spot window is probably 4 to 6 weeks. I mean, cabin's still got a bit of space in October, but September's basically fully booked. And but yeah, you can always kind of get people in a fairly short notice. And then we do get some people booking further ahead, but it's one of the challenges of how to. Because really you want to load up your order book as far in the future as possible. But then we also want to make it accessible for people. So if people want to go in a couple of weeks, it's how do we have the supply for that? So
you ever thought about just bumping the prices and seeing what happens?
Yeah, we're playing around with that. A bit more now.
We might have to cut that out, mister. Hey.
And I think, if we are, we're running at 100% occupancy, and that probably says that we are mispricing it, to be honest.
Yeah.
So there's some optimising to be done.
We've got a couple of Airbnbs. Like, I think it depends where it is, but what would you say the average for a cabin is? Like 70 like we forecasted off like 70% occupancy rate. They're in
You've
Manchester.
got an Airbnb?
We don't run them. We just have them like rent to rent. Long
Yeah.
story.
So we'll probably do like 90% this year.
Yeah. So you
Last
probably
year.
could just charge more money and make.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of those where it's a bit of a. It's like Elon Musk when they were scaling up Tesla was always like pushing his team to. They had to constantly be sold out, because as soon as you're not sold out, like the demand could be infinite. Right?
Yeah.
But as soon as you're not sold out, then it's saying that this is as much as people want. So it's kind of the same with us, where you just want to be full. You just want to be full all the time, because that sends a message of like that there's excess demand, and there is, right? Like it drives FOMO. It's one of those where if people went on our site and all of the cabins were empty, then they're probably like, this isn't going to be that good, is it? So there is that thing of just like being sold out. But again, it's like, for me, I need to, and I constantly flip-flop on this, I need to understand like what's important. Like, is it about getting the maximum revenue out now? Is it about being just sold out all the time? And at different times it's different things, that impacts the team, it impacts fundraising, it impacts all these things. So it's like understanding where you are as a business and a person in each moment, and what the kind of right thing to optimize for is.
Like, what story do you need to tell at this point, I guess?
Exactly. It's exactly that.
Like,
yeah.
do you need to paint a picture to these stakeholders? Do you need to paint a picture to your team?
Yeah.
Fund. I guess it's hard to balance all that.
Yeah, there's probably multiple stories at the same time, right?
Yeah, and you can spin them up in different ways. Yeah, but it's interesting challenge. I think that sellout point's underutilized in the online space as well.
Yeah, and I actually
seen as a big negative. A lot of people see it as a negative to run out of products, and it is if you've got one product, because that's like and you're at scale, because your cash flow will be fucked. But like, I think if you've got multiple SKUs, like selling out isn't always a bad thing. Like pent up demand, that scarcity mindset is undervalued in a way.
Yeah, I kind of changed my mind on this after meeting Matt for the first time, because I think we were a little bit too cautious on that side of things at the start, and then met Matt a few months into Space Gears and just saw you juicing it on the ads. So you're just like really, and you just realise you can just turn it up, Well,
that's kind of I come from a background of Chad scaling. So just put
another
another zero on the budget.
There's a time and place for that, right? Like you want to, again, it's like understanding what's really important right now. Like, is it showing a big margin, or is it just about being sold out? But in the early days, it's probably about being sold out,
And what you have the ops and back end to fulfill on, and the capability,
exactly.
and that's an element, that lag of like, do you have the right?
But I just think there were times last year when like the occupancy wasn't full, and we were just a bit too precious about not going above a certain CAC, where we still would have made a lot of money. We still would have made money with a higher CAC, So it's like you're literally just losing stock now. So yeah, lesson learned. But you got to learn these things by experience, don't you?
Do you never do dynamic pricing into like urgency discount towards, like, obviously airline? I did a module at university in economics on airline pricing, and that whole like that modelled process where there's a sweet spot to buy them. There's a point at which to start discounting. Imagine hotels obviously do apply that. Is that something you've stayed away from?
No, I mean it's the way to go. I think the just challenge is the flexibility of the platforms. We use a kind of out-of-the-box system called Easel, which is sense. Like Shopify for experiences, and there's not that much around that. So we're doing it manually now, and we're experimenting more and more with that. And then there's things you can do, like we've got an email list called Secret Sundays that you pay £3.50 a month for, and we discount the last minute stays on that, and that works well, because there's like a bit of buy-in for people, and you can get a good discount on that. So it's just cool building the levers and understanding better how to fill cabins, basically.
There's so many possibilities with the audience. Like there's so much community, such a community play as well. All sorts of stuff like that. That's really exciting. So that brand side of things. I'm really bullish on community as a concept. Yeah, like really bullish. I think I've told you about it, and I think there's a lot of brands that are doing it more and more. I think the audience you're situated in is like perfect.
Who do you think is doing it really well?
Pure Sport are doing it really well.
Say that, yeah.
I always say them. Like their first one that comes living in London. They do a lot of run clubs, and I was with my mate a minute ago that works with me, and she went from work to one of the run clubs. They do like loads of them, and they built a massive brand off that. I think Represent do it pretty well. Clothing brand, a little bit different model. Outdoor Voices is a really good one that probably there'll be interesting reference points to you. They do the clothing brand built by the girl called Ty from America, but they do like loads of big community initiatives, and it's like you get so many massive benefits from it. Content, word of mouth, like so many tangible benefits, and you can also just release products easier when you've got a community that you can soundboard ideas off.
Yeah, 100%.
Just shortens your feedback.
Yeah, I need to figure that out.
You're
Just
the
a
same. You're
focus
situated
thing.
in very similar audiences, like in terms of people, and that's really useful, I think. In some not a lot of brands, like if I was to reference Tev, like we sell to such a broad amount of people. The essence of all it's just like the community play there is so much harder to do. There's so many mixed messages and voices.
I was trying to think of a really funny, offensive joke to say about the community that would be Tev.
It's a bit
for context. It's a brand
inspired perfume.
Yeah, it's cheap inspired. But it's fucking Prince.
Yeah, it's a great concept of saving people
Your
money.
community play would be just like going to one of those Tesco car meets on a Tuesday night.
I think the community play is to lean into a culture of frugality and saving money, and that hack side of things. I think that is a possibility. That is something that would resonate with the audience, like how to get more out of less.
Yeah,
and you'd probably be able to build something through that, but it's not as compelling a message as a run club, because you love being active, where you can really
the problem is the run club's a really good idea, but I saw Gymshark start doing that now, which is like a pure rip.
Again, they're just too. I think that it works very ground up. I feel organic from bottom up. Gymshark did it when they were a lot smaller, and I think
Expos
with
and shit.
expos and meetups they did it really well. But now when you're at true scale like them, like you're not marketing to everybody because you've got a clear tone of voice and a clear like tribe behind your product, but lots of people buy your product like at that scale. Lots of different individuals through different backgrounds and lifestyles are interested in different things. So I think it's a little bit harder to build a community that resonates with like most of the people that shop from you. But I still think it's probably still possible. I think you should do 100%.
I know you keep saying that, but I also just feel like we should just get to 10 million revenue first and then worry about that.
I think like
it's just the autistic simplicity again.
But I
think spend
like,
more on Instagram ads.
I think like the thing for me for subscription brands is like
because
everybody
there definitely is an element of community there already.
Yeah,
but it's like they don't know each other. Just people that love the product.
You're bringing people to your product aligns with quite a clear persona of individual, quite like a clear, like driven, motivated, high output, and I think you've got like subscription brands for me people always overemphasize how much messaging decreases churn rate from brands. And I think if you think about your own purchasing experience, like what subscription brand have you ever not unsubscribed from because they've sent you an email or a text message? I can't name a single one. The reason I've not unsubscribed from Athletic Greens is because I found it through Andrew Huberman and I know how good it is for me. It's like and I wouldn't not unsubscribe from him because
those little micro things do have an incremental value.
They do have an
not the fundamental
value,
thing. Yeah.
But what has a bigger value is how you add more value to the person beyond the product, which I think is what a community would do. It's like you're providing a tangible benefit from them through a community alongside the product that they're buying. So I think it would, if you did it right, reduce your churn rate because that's the only way they can get access to it.
I always think I thought that with Heights, they do really, really well on the customer acquisition, and I actually got it to see what they were doing on the community side. I was surprised that there wasn't
doing nothing.
Yeah. I think there's a big opportunity there.
And they've got
still a great product, and
they've got a network of really.
I saw their investor update last week because one of my investors shared it with me.
They're not
as big as I thought.
They're not.
They've raised a lot of money.
I've seen behind there.
Sorry, Dan, if you're watching. It's still bigger than me, but
I think,
it's not as big as I thought.
They're a difficult one because they're selling a product that's a brain supplement that you don't feel the benefits for 3 months, and then it's very intangible. Like, how do you know you've got like? Does your brain feel better after 3 months of taking?
I do think it's a great brand.
I think it's a sick brand.
One of the best I've seen.
But it's a very difficult churn problem, I'd imagine. Like how do you it's like people, increasingly so, people in society are after input like quick dopamine hits, which is not something that provides.
But that I think is what Athletic Greens do really well, where it tastes really like healthy.
Yeah.
And so you drink
Not
one of
too
those
grim.
and you think
I spent 80 quid a month on that.
Though.
Yeah, it's fine, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm just convinced it makes me less sick.
Yeah,
I get a cold less.
They've got a real placebo effect going, isn't it? Where
They've got a placebo effect, but I just think their partners and the way the people like Andrew Huberman, Serena Williams, like the people who are on their website,
It's like the Rolex
point
of
that you
supplements.
enter the point that you come into their product is the thing that keeps you there for the longest.
It's that thing about like juicing one channel really well. You know,
Yeah.
like they've just
Podcasts.
they just haven't stopped on the influencer stuff. They're just like churning out new influencers.
We've
the
also
whole
been
time.
around a lot longer than you think. Like,
Yeah,
20 years.
20 years, yeah. But
Maybe it's not
they
20.
really,
It's a lot. It's at least 10.
they came about after COVID as well, when that health kick probably really like really kicked in that period. But I think communities. So
I need to do
great.
some influencer shit, like even some celebrity shit. It's just channels. It just comes down to, I've thought about it. People say, "Have you done
That's
influencer
easy
yet?"
to do it, yeah.
Exactly.
The good thing about D2C is like you never know. Like one thing, I think Heights have done a lot really well. And like one thing they've done really well is they've just got lots of interesting customers. And like the good thing about D2C is you just never know who's gonna use it. And like I think almost the gold standard for a D2C brand is when you get the like celebrity. You know, you see some of the like Whoops, not really D2C, but the consumer brands.
Celebrities
that
buying
really
it.
get the celebrity and then investing, right? And then it just becomes synonymous with the brand. Like this brand's backed by
Roger Federer did that really well for
on the
running, and he's earned $1 billion from that.
Yeah, and Stephen Bartlett and Hughes, you know, it's just it just worked really well. It's such a win-win for both of them. And I think
Might have got that number wrong about Roger Federer.
It's something like
$1
that.
billion.
Yeah.
he's earned $1 billion from it.
I'm pretty sure he has.
But
Stephen Bartlett did it really well with Hughes. Hughes is another incredible brand.
Hugh, I always talk about Hugh and Athletic Greens whenever I speak to anyone about what I'm trying to do with mushrooms. I just say those two.
Yeah, that's it.
It's just simple but hard.
Yeah.
So, where are you trying to go with this cabin thing then?
Good question.
Like,
Well, it's almost a social experiment. Like I think the future's.
how big do you think it can be? Are you trying to put cabins in every fucking city in the world?
We want to be the
Is there a
biggest.
vision for that?
The biggest digital detox brand in the world, you know, so that won't necessarily always be cabins. But
Are you
I think,
trying to get unplugged.com?
I actually tried to get it 6 months before I started the business.
Is it a lot?
Yeah, it was like 6 figures.
Yeah.
But before I was even thinking about cabins, I read a book called Digital Minimalism about spending less time online. I was like, Unplugged would be a sick name for a business, so I tried to buy it, but too expensive. So Unplugged.rest was cheaper. But yeah, look, want to just really, I think the future is much more malleable than we think, and almost see this as a social experiment where we're going one way as a society, and just by succeeding, we will move society in a different direction. And so I just want to see what the fuck happens with that. I don't really mind if we make a big success, and I'm sure we'll do well financially, but I don't really care what I end up with number on a spreadsheet at the end of all of this. Like, want to just really fucking turn this up and see what happens. I think we have such an amazing opportunity now. The timing's perfect, the positioning's strong, and so just want to see where we can go with it.
Nice. Similar brand. Have you seen Pairing?
What's that?
Pairing.
Yes, I saw that.
So they're the social experiment brand.
Yeah,
they're doing
very
Is that like a business or
they're trying to do a similar thing to what you're doing in terms of like change. Society's going down this online dating path. How do we bring it?
That's a swing for the fences they've gone for.
They've gone, huge.
That's
like,
interesting.
how many? That's
Isn't
the
the
thing with
idea
that.
you
Is it
literally
only works
you
when
wear
you get
the
to
ring?
like,
Yeah.
you get to wear this coloured ring, but it only works when you get to critical mass.
Yeah.
Like, you have to
Yeah,
get
that's
to this
crazy.
point of having
Quickly.
Yeah, so many. Otherwise, no one's going to wear this plastic.
You'd be searching for the one girl in the whole of the UK that's wearing a yellow ring.
Yeah. I thought Thursday was interesting with that because they obviously, I'm not sure what they're up to now. I think they're an events company, but they were starting to do some interesting stuff on that, but then obviously never quite figured out the app side of things. There was one I never figured out what it was. It was like PIPT, PIP. Did you see that one? That they had tubes ads for months. Like, this is coming soon. These black ads, and never found out what it was. Never saw anything more about it.
Out of Home's a funny medium.
Literally,
really
they had it all over.
High risk.
Yeah, super high risk.
Works well for like. My girlfriend works for Lucky Saint.
But
It works
especially
really well
David
for them.
Prolowell. Yeah, I bet.
Oh, does
It works
she?
really, really well for them.
Loads of people work for Lucky Saint. Small world.
They've done really well to like. I don't know how they're now official sponsor of Dry January. I don't even know how that's possible, but they've commandeered it.
Funky little world. It's a bit of creative.
Very good. Yeah, I
creative
like
marketing.
it. I like it.
But they're in the similar. I think they're in a similar place. You kind of very strong trend in society.
Yeah, they've done well to differentiate in something that's very hard to differentiate, which is non-alcoholic beer.
And getting
they do have quite
noisier by the minute as well. The amount of fucking non-alcoholic microbreweries that seem to pop up every 2 weeks.
Yeah,
they have. I think it's brand. Their brand is incredibly strong. Really, really strong brand.
Yeah, it's
really strong execution. really, really well done overall. But I think that social experiment, that bigger goal is great. It's cool to hear. I think like you never do it for the money beyond a certain point, really, do you? It's just like you say, it's just a fucking number.
Yeah.
Ollie was set for life 3 years ago. After 1 year in the agency space in 2020.
It's just like, don't spend that much fucking money. I couldn't.
I mean, look at this outfit.
There you go.
In it.
Brown recession-proof socks, second-hand recession-proof trousers.
Do you want to go through my fit?
My fit's even
like,
worse.
It's just like, fucking don't spend that much cash. Yeah. What? Go on.
I was just going to wrap up with the final question.
Yeah, you wrap
which
up.
is a really cringy, typical question I ask on this podcast. But I say 3 bits of advice to your 18-year-old self upon reflection. Or maybe even just before you started the business, but I think going back a bit further is more interesting.
I think if I go back a bit further, like first was just no one cares. Like I think I was really not sure of myself for a lot of my early years, and you think everyone's watching, but everyone's just worried about their own shit. So that's a big one. Other bits of advice, I think. Yeah, what we were talking about earlier, just like lean into what gives you energy, you know, because like you feel like there's a right path, but there's not. So it's just like just going with the flow and seeing where that takes you. And another one is like just help yourself so you can help others. I think we often try and do shit from a place of like stress ourselves. We're trying to do this business. We're trying to like be there for people in our lives, and we're a mess. And I think read The Art of War last year, which is not the most readable book, but one thing that really stuck out there is like the kind of Supreme General is just completely serene, and it's like if you can just get yourself into that place, then everything else will fall into place. I was did a Vipassana earlier this year, which is like 10 hours a day meditating for 10 days, and what they talk about there is you've got mental action, physical action, verbal action. So what you think, what you do, and what you say. And we spend so much time worried about what we should do and what we should say, and really all you should focus on is what you think. And if you can get your thoughts in a positive place, the other two will fall into place. So I think it's just that focus on yourself, and life just has a funny way of working itself out.
Boom.
That was
anything
deep.
to
That
add?
was deep
You
and
look
a much-
pensive.
That was just deep and a much better answer than I would provide or most people provide. So,
Yeah, it was.
No, nothing else to add. That was super interesting. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure. So
Yeah, I'll put all your links below. I think everyone's going to fucking go and book Unplugged now. Although my audience is 17-year-old boys, so maybe not. I'll certainly be booking it. And as always, subscribe to the pod. We're actually back doing this again now, or at least I'm forcing myself to, because it's probably good for my mind to get away from the screen and put it onto your screens instead. So, been a pleasure.
love it. Great
Thanks for
stuff,
coming
lads. Thanks for having me.
Catch you later. Boom.